Welcome everyone to our September 9th, 2025 Board of County Commissioners 2 o'clock Commissioners Consent Agenda meeting. Let the record reflect that all 5 commissioners are present. Commissioner French is on Zoom. We did receive lots of written testimony for today for the items on our agenda, or some of the items on our agenda, I'll say it that way. And with that then, I do have someone signed up for public testimony. If there's anyone else, please let the clerk know. So to start with, though, we're going to stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you all. So I do have one person signed up for open public forum, so I'm going to open the open public forum and ask Becky Dickerhoof if you'd please come down.
I'm here, Becky Dickerhoof, Spokane City. I'm here today to ask the county commissioners to enact what is commonly referred to as the 1590 tax. This ordinance, which amended RCW 82.14.530, allows the county legislative authority to impose a sales and use tax not to exceed 0.1% of the selling price in the case of a sales tax or value of the article used in case of a use tax. This will allow the county to create more homes for the unsheltered. At least 60% of that money must be used for the construction of housing and related services. The balance must be used for the operation, delivery, or services related to housing. Who are the homeless? HUD, McKinney-Vento, and other federal agencies have varying definitions. They lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. They are at imminent risk of losing their housing. They are fleeing domestic violence. They are living in places not meant for habitation, such as a vehicle. They are living in an emergency shelter or existing institutions. They are temporarily staying with others, such as doubling up or couch surfing. They are living in precarious self-pay motels. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, in 2025, individuals on Social Security could afford a rent of $290. A household with one full-time worker making minimum wage could afford $377. A family of 4 at the poverty level could afford $804. A full-time worker earning the average renter wage could afford $1,227. In 2025, a one-bedroom fair market rent is $1,465, while a two-bedroom is $1,749. Only affordable, available housing will solve the homeless crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have anyone else at this time signed up for open public forum, so I'll open it up for anyone in the audience or anyone online. See no one. Third and final call for anyone wishing to testify at our open public forum. See no one online or no one in the audience. I will close the open public forum and look to my fellow commissioners.
Madam Chair, move that we approve item 3A through E.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for items 3A through E. Any further discussion?
Real quick, I just want to thank our legal team for the work on the edits to item E, the Bar Association letter.
Thank you. I was waiting for you.
That's all.
Okay. Seeing no further comments, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That will take us to item 4A, which is a public hearing in the matter of the execution of a development agreement with Pathways Enterprises, LLC for approval of CPA-05-2024 and the development of a rural mercantile. And I believe we have Scott Chesney is going to be presenting.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you. This development agreement is a result of one of the CPAs that came through in recent times. And what it does, the CPA was to change some ag lands that are within the city of Spangles urban growth area into regional commercial that would allow for commercial uses in that area. The development agreement limits the uses to community commercial, which is a less intense designation on those lands and a little more suitable to the city at the time, also reflecting the fact that Spangles water and sewer cannot support more intense uses that would be in the regional commercial at this time. So the development agreement is the applicant voluntarily agreeing to limit their activities until such time as water and sewer can be fully provided. We asked the town of Spangle to comment on this. The comments went back and forth. The applicant and the town both agree on its passage, so we would ask your support.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments for Mr. Chesney? Not seeing any. This is a public hearing item, so I will open it up for public testimony for anyone that would like to testify on item 4A as just presented. Seeing no one, second call for anyone wishing to testify on item number 4A. No one online, no one in the audience. Third and final call for anyone wishing to testify at the public hearing for item 4A. Seeing no one, I will then close the public hearing and look to my fellow commissioners.
Madam Chair, I move to approve public hearing item number 4A as presented by staff.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Now that's going to take us to the exciting part of our agenda today. That's something we don't see all that often. So item 5A is to interview the following nominees for Spokane County Prosecutor's vacancy. So we do have 3 candidates that have come forward from the Treasurer Volz is not one of them. As he walks by. You know, he's so small that we all miss him, right? Exactly. Didn't work. So with that, we have 5A is the interviewing of the following nominees for Spokane County Prosecutor vacancy. Mr. Marshall Chesney, Chesney, we just had Scott, sorry. Mr. Marshall Casey, who I see here, Mr. Steve Garvin, and then Mr. Preston McCollum. So what we're going to do is go in that order. And Mr. Casey, if you're ready to come up, what I think to make the process easier is if you would like to sit or would you like to stand? I guess the choice is yours. Exactly. You have 30 minutes of it, so approximately. So let me up to 30 minutes. So I just want to kind of set the ground rules so you know, and then others will know. I believe you were given our list of questions. We have a long list. We won't be asking all the questions. What we will do is we'll just kind of go round robin. We'll start with Commissioner Jordan and we'll work our way around. And we'll each ask you a question. And I will try to keep track, and I'll be keeping track of time to tell whichever commissioner we got to start to cut off the time and give you a little bit of time to just see if there's any other questions or comments that you might have for us.
Excellent.
So that's how we plan to go about this.
Sounds good.
So with that, I don't know, I think, did we talk about an opening statement and a closing statement?
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
I figure I'm in your hands and you guys can just ask the questions and I'll see how you like me. We're done.
Okay, we can do that. Yeah, a 30-minute, that'd be great once we get started. So after I kind of make sure everyone's comfortable. So is everybody okay? I want to make sure all the commissioners are okay with that. We will have a 30-minute timer up then, so you guys will all know. So if I have to give anybody the hook, you'll know why. I would like to try to leave about 5 minutes at the end, just so that way if you have any questions of us, that you have that opportunity to do that or provide a kind of a closing statement if we haven't asked all the questions you would like to have answered.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so with that then, we will go ahead and start. So I will just have you state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Marshall Casey. I'm an attorney here in Spokane, and I've put my name forward along with the Republican Party as one of the 3 candidates for prosecutor. So that's who I am.
Thank you. So Commissioner Jordan, we'll have you start.
Okay, thanks for being here. Nice to meet you, Mr. Casey.
Good to meet you too.
Starting off with a hardball, what motivates you to seek this position?
Actually, for me, that is a hard ball because they needed 3 candidates, and I chose to put my name in after 2 very good candidates had put their name in. And as I thought about it and put my name forward to really fill the slot, I thought you guys deserve to have an option outside of the prosecutor's office. And so really, I am that option. I have not done prosecution before, but I've done a fair amount of litigation. I'm very familiar with the process. And before that, I've managed and really performed well in the corporate world. So I know how to form groups. I know what our community cares about. And so really, as I've thought through this, I'm your 3rd option. You've got 2 other very good options, but if you're looking for something unique, that's me. You're welcome.
Okay, so we are just able to jump around, Madam Chair, and okay. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Casey. Nice to meet you as well.
Glad to meet you.
And I'm going to jump down to number 6 here on our list, which was, if you were appointed Spokane County Prosecutor, what would be your initial priorities?
Well,
And you can give an example of how the office, where the office could do better. How would you approach, the duties of the office and making that happen?
That's perfect. My initial priorities would be to get to know the office. Obviously, I come from the outside, so I'd need to get to know it, and I would begin by sitting down with people and taking an assessment of where things are inside the office. But one of the things that I think the real opportunity for the prosecutor's office to do is really partner with the community more and begin going out and talking to the community. So I would really begin to set up a process to begin making sure that the prosecutor's office is engaging with the community much more. And that means including the fact of, quite frankly, we need to be working everything from engaging with the juveniles, which means going to schools, talking about the importance of law and justice in our community. And we need to engage with you and many of the other partnerships. And so really, although I'd come into the office and figure out kind of what's going on, we have a very good set of prosecutors from everything I've been told. What we need is more engagement with the rest of the community and more partnership. And so I really see that as the first thing I would work on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Casey, thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask question number 4 on our list here, which is, what are the core duties and functions of the Spokane County Prosecutor?
Excellent. Well, the core function of any prosecutor is actually prosecution, and that means choosing what crimes to prosecute, choosing what charges to be brought, and really speaking for the victims of crime and bringing that forward. But there are other core things, other core duties that I think are very important. And one of them is being your chief counsel and the chief counsel of the county and making sure we advise on that. And so I would make sure that is also going to be pushed very heavily. And then there are some duties that oversee some of the voting and stuff like that. So honestly, I see the core duty, at least this would be my vision, as a safer Spokane. And that means through choosing the correct prosecution route, but also making sure I advise on legal counsel to everyone who needs it within the county. Sorry, not everyone who needs it, all the departments that need it.
Thank you. So I'm going to go to number 12, which is, what do you consider your most important professional achievement?
That's a good question, and that's a hard question for me because my professional achievements before coming into law, I worked for Bank of America. I made up to a vice presidency and helped on a lot of merger and transitions into the company, and that was a lot of fun. But becoming a lawyer, I've had more what I consider professional achievements. And the reason I consider them better professional achievements is currently I get to represent people going through the legal system, and that is the most fun thing ever. Because when you take people who need a hand and talk them through, here's how we go to law, and you stand in front of judges and juries and you realize the best I can do is say, here's the promises you made, please honor them, here's my client's story. Those are very fun procedures. And that's a professional, that's a professional achievement. Just to go on to that though, to say some of the cases that are fun, because I do have to talk about this. Actually, one of the more fun things I did was when I defended people from being evicted. And it was very fun because you would meet them, you'd hear their story very quickly, and you'd have to turn around and help them and talk through their story very quickly. And so I was very proud of that, even though I've argued up to the Washington Supreme Court, done cases in the Ninth Circuit. I gotta say, some of that stuff is probably more impactful to me than anything else.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner French.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and also thank you, Mr. Casey, for agreeing to be part of the process and stuff. I know of you, and you've got a great reputation in the community, and I'm very glad that you've put your name into the hat for this position as well. So I'm going to ask you question number 16. Share with us a specific accomplishment of yours in a previous leadership role that indicates how you would thrive in this position.
Excellent. Yeah, as I said, I think probably the best thing that I could share is the work I did at Bank of America even before becoming a lawyer, because one of the biggest things for this department is not necessarily the ability to practice law, it's the ability to manage and interface with others. And so there were quite a few times where I'd be handed a large project, I'd have to build a team for it, bring people in, network with different stakeholders. And at times these were multi-million-dollar items, or how we would begin to integrate a business. And you had such discussions as you went through those. Are you going to move this process here, which means terminating a bunch of people? Are you going to move it here? And you had to interface with all the people who cared and all these higher up executives. And I found when I built these teams, and sometimes people would be on the team who would be annoying to me. You guys all have to kind of know what that's like. But one of the things I found was the annoying person was actually sometimes my best salvation. And so listening to the dissenting voice and making sure I took that carefully was incredibly important. So what I've learned as I go into if I go into this office, I would definitely listen to every person and prosecutor there, regardless of whether or not I consider them to be a conflicting voice. And I would also listen and partner with everyone in the community, because absolutely the prosecutor's office needs that partnership. And that's what I believe I bring strongest to the table, is the ability to build partnerships.
Okay, my next one is 14. How would your fellow coworkers describe you, and how would they describe your management style?
It would depend on if they're angry at the time. No, actually, I think most of my coworkers, at this point, I'm not in a management role in my current office. So most of them would describe me as a good resource to come to, a good person who likes to mentor others and help them. But if you were to ask my management style, as I discussed before, when I had to manage my own office, because I ran my own practice for a long time, and when I've managed other teams before that, my management style is what I would call collaborative, but decisive. There's a time where the leader needs to make hard calls. I'm not afraid of that. But I would say most of the time, the leader should be inspiring their people. And one of the things I believe is very important for managers is to not just have the right people, but making sure the right people have the right tools. And so if someone's failing to do their job, often they're failing in the tool set, means they don't have the training they need, they don't have the other tools they need, and resources. And so I think that's very important. But if it comes to a point where the person isn't fitting on a team, because that happens, that ruins the team. And I'm able to make those hard decisions of, okay, we're hurting the team, we need to move this forward.
All right, I'm going to stay on that same page, number 15. So this is about telling us about a time when traditional solutions just didn't work in your experience. So describe this situation, how it was traditionally solved, and how you came up with an innovative solution.
Excellent. You know, actually that was, and I keep referencing back to my job at Bank of America, but that was one of my jobs, was to deal with the fact that the traditional was not working. So when I originally, Bank of America had acquired a $1.4 billion division down in Louisville, Kentucky, and moved me down there to help with that transition. And one of the things that wasn't working was the way they were processing new people, and this department wasn't working. And so they asked me to go in there and find an innovative solution, and I'll tell you how you do that. You, first of all, talk with the people to figure out what is going on now and hear what are the problems. And then you ask, what are some possible solutions? But then you look at information, data, take that in, and then you come up with possible solutions that are pretty easy. Typically, people have been brought them forward before, they've just been ignored. And you go through those and you say, okay, what are we going to implement at this point? And you then make that decision, and you make that decision more often with a group of counselors, even if you're the person in charge, which means you go out, you hear from others the voice that's needed, and then you bring that solution forward. But the most important thing after you bring in a new solution is you need to measure it and make sure it's actually working. Because we do a lot of changes that don't work. And so the way you got to do it is be able to admit, okay, this may not be working, let's change to something else. But your first question of the traditional, I actually don't believe in traditional. I believe there's ways we've always done things, and I believe you don't change things too quickly. But we should always be thinking, can we do it better?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm going to ask question 18. What do you see as the biggest challenge the county is going to face over the next 5 years, and how would your office help address these challenges at Spokane County?
Yeah, I think the challenge we're currently facing is the challenge we will face for the rest of 5 years, if not longer, which is a fentanyl crisis and a homelessness crisis. And honestly, from the prosecutor's office, I think the first thing, there's obviously prosecution that can be done, and that needs to be done, and it needs to be focused on not just prosecuting the crimes, though, because I think that's absolutely important. That's the role of the prosecutor. But I think reaching out to the public and figuring out how can we interact with the public better to make them know what's actually going on and the crimes it's causing, because it causes downstream crimes. But I think even more importantly, it is going to our high schools, going to our community, because honestly, if we have a problem, it is going to go into our children, and that's going to be the best solution, because by the time someone's on fentanyl, by the time we're charging someone, we've already lost.
So I'm going to go to question number 23. This is something as we're looking at our budgets and trying to make decisions, we're talking about metrics and performance measures. So what types of metrics and performance measures would you look to gather and report on regularly for the public and for the Board of County Commissioners to help address the effectiveness of the prosecutor's office?
I gotta say, that was actually the hardest one for me to think about. And I'll tell you why, is people respond to metrics. If you put a metric out there and you're wrong, people will respond to it and do the wrong thing. And so I don't know if I'd tell you today what metrics I would choose, but I would choose two. And one of them would be a metric, and I'd work with people to figure out what it is, but a metric that says, here's how we're doing on prosecutions and representing victims and making sure that's being done. But there would need to be a second metric, because I believe the prosecutor's office has a job to, like the rest of government, to protect individual rights, and that means making sure we're not prosecuting people who don't deserve it. And so both those things, I think, are very important, And that's actually one of the things I would work very hard on doing, is gathering the voice of the community of what do you guys want to hear about? Because if we build the wrong metric, people will perform wrong. And so I struggled with telling you exactly what it is, and I would take some time to do it, but it would be a metric that would counterbalance those two things. How are we doing on prosecuting crime? And how are we doing on making sure that we are not putting away people and using our prosecutorial discretion wisely to also not be prosecuting crime that didn't happen, we think is innocent, something like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll go to Commissioner French.
My next question is question number 25. When you've encountered conflict in a decision-making process that involved other people, how did you go about solving the conflict?
Normally, I just challenge them to a fight outside. No, I'm teasing. Actually, the number one way of resolving any conflict is making sure that I, number one, respect their position. And I'll tell you, everyone says that, but throughout most of my legal career, it involves conflict. I mean, that's what I do day in and day out. So I actually do take time and sit there and think, how's this other person feeling? What do they want? What's their goals? And can we meet in the middle? Can we do something that would bring benefit to everyone? Because like I said, the dissenter on the team often has a very good purpose. And if you shut them down, you'll run right off the cliff and not know what they were warning you about.
This one's 22. I'm
Okay.
sure you've got them all memorized
No,
in
I
your brain,
don't.
right?
You guys are naming them off, and I'm like, okay, numbers, there we go.
Yes.
We're
Help
doing the
yourselves,
numbers,
yeah,
so
I get-
we all know.
I
So
do,
Yes, yes. In this position, you will be working closely with various elected officials. Describe your experience working with political figures or similar occupations. What were the greatest challenges you experienced? How did you manage to overcome those?
Yeah, I've worked with various elected officials, especially in the legislature. I've talked with them, lobbied for different bills, did different testimony. I have worked with different elected officials in litigation, and I will tell you that there's a few challenges with elected officials that I find I don't have with other people, and that's the number one is your public persona. People are very protective of their public persona, and you need to be cautious of that, and so you can't be as upfront on certain confrontation. And so what I've found is, number one, to make sure I listen on elected officials to what they care about. If I do have an issue, it's talked behind closed doors. And then I sit there and put forward what I believe would help with their position and where they're going versus what I need. And ultimately, let me say this about elected officials. One of the beliefs I have, like with judges and juries and elected officials, everyone wants to see themselves as just. Everyone believes they're doing the right thing. And it's important to approach everyone from that standpoint. Even if I disagree with them, it doesn't mean they're being bad, anything like that. It just means we may have a disagreement in the right thing, but they want to do the right thing too.
I'm going to go to number 10, and this was, before you talked about collaboration.
Yeah.
And working with different stakeholders. What role do you see for the prosecutor's office in collaborating with other stakeholders across the region to improve outcomes, efficiency, and effectiveness in the criminal justice system? So maybe just expound a little
Yeah.
bit more detail, and when you talk about collaboration, what does that look like?
Yeah, no, that's very good, and that goes back to the role with public officials. It depends on what that stakeholder really is doing. So if we're talking the stakeholder is you, because you are all stakeholders, you fund the office. And so one of the things you want to care about, based on what I believe, is number one, are we using your resources correctly, and can you tell the public we're using your resources correctly? However, if I'm talking with the legislator, Legislators have different goals of what are they passing from legislation standpoint. Are they going to prosecute, are they going to pass harsher things on crime or lesser things on crime? So I'd want to work with them to make them understand, here's the impact on the victims, but here's also the impact on our community, what's going to happen there. And then that leads me to really the courts are another place, because we have to work with the courts. And right now, you guys probably saw it, there are a few court rules that have come down that are going to be impactful, probably more on you, but take resources from the office of the prosecutor. And one of them is these new defender guidelines, or standards on that. And so that's one where there needs to be an active working with the court system and telling them this is the impact on us, or working with the judges here in Spokane of, you know, here's some things that are going to be coming up into the future that you guys, we can see how we can help you with some of the court rules you do too, and also some of the other stuff. So I see it differently based on who I'm working with, but honestly, it's going to come down to figuring out what your goals are. How do I partner with them to make the prosecutor's office successful in making our county and region safe?
Thank you.
I'm going to ask question 19. This is, please describe a situation when you were in a public meeting and had to handle negative community feedback. What were the political pressures involved in the situation, and how did you handle it?
You know, I gotta say, everywhere I go, people love me, so I don't know if I've got that situation. No, I probably have not been in the public arena as much as other people. There has been times where I do remember when I was campaigning for judge. It was always wonderful. People would drive by and flip me off at times, and you'd have to respond that way. But unfortunately, when I campaigned for judge, I wasn't able to get a lot of forums because it was 2020 and we were often shut down. So I don't know if I'll give you a public forum, but I can give you the fact that it happens often in court where there is negative feedback at times. And I will tell you, when that negative feedback comes, I don't agree with it. But I've had to learn to equally respect that. And probably, actually, here's a moment of candid honesty for you. I'm a little emotionally retarded, so I don't always understand if someone's insulting me very quickly. So actually, that helps me out of just kind of being able to think about the question they asked or the comment they made rather than the insult. So I actually probably don't get frustrated for about 2 or 3 days. So I tend to respond pretty good under criticism.
Okay, so my question is question number 5, which is, what is your experience working with labor organizations or managing a represented workforce?
None. I have not worked with labor organizations or managed that kind of resource. I have done employment cases, and I've worked on those, and so I understand that portion, but I don't understand, I don't have experience working with labor unions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner French, I'm going to have you do the last question, and then we'll allow time for
Well, I got another one that's, you know, I got 25 here. No, so actually, I'm going to ask question number 24. Is there any public information on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, about you that could negatively affect Spokane County? Is there anything in your public record that you would like to be to expand on, provide clarity around here?
You have me thinking. I don't think I've posted anything that would reflect negatively on Spokane County. I really don't think so. I'm trying to think. If I thought it would reflect negatively on someone, I probably wouldn't have posted it. But if you guys come up with something, I'd love to talk about it.
Well, I didn't find anything.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're right at just at like 5 minutes and 23 seconds left. So what I'd like to do is just give you the opportunity, if there's any questions you have for us, or if there's anything that you would like to talk about, kind of give a closing statement if you want to.
Okay. Well, I guess here's my question for you. What is your vision of the prosecutor office as we have a transition away from Mr. Haskell? So I don't know if anyone wants to answer that. But that would be my question, because at the end of the day, that would be the difference of whether or not, ultimately, I'm pursuing this job, but the question of whether I want it ultimately would be depending on what your vision is, because I'd have to work closely with you.
Does anyone want to take a response?
Well, I'll take it.
Go ahead, Commissioner French.
Yeah, so one of the things that aspirations that I've had out of our criminal justice system is that we were known for a system that provided equal justice quicker, and so that requires a number of different approaches: early case resolution, diversion to therapy, and a variety of other things, so that whoever encounters a criminal justice system, that it's not the end of the trip, it's a stop during the trip to get them to be a productive member of the community. And so that's my aspiration for our criminal justice system.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? And if not, I will launch into my soliloquy.
No, I think for me, I mean, that was part of, talking about the metrics and performance measures, because you're reporting as an elected, we're reporting, looking at the appointment process today, but in the future, it's the citizens that you report to.
Yes.
But then it's also the commissioners, as you stated with the budget. And as Commissioner French said, it's that quicker resolution that helps everybody and helps our system. And so I think those are some of the things that I'm looking for, is what are some of those efficiencies that we can make, still doing everything we need to do to do its best for the people that are in the system, and protecting our citizens. But there's a balance to all of that, as you know. So it's looking at what that balance is.
Thank you.
I just would state that there's been a lot of conversations in the last 20 years in Spokane County about how to improve our criminal justice system from, from the policing on the street to the resolution in the courts, and what happens when people are released from jail or correctional facilities, and everything in between, right? And whether people are diverted from the system. And so I think there's been a lot of good efforts from retired judges and prosecutors and public defenders and others with the Blueprint for Reform, with the Criminal Justice Task Force. We've gotten the MacArthur grant here at the county that's been invested in a lot of different strategies. And I'm looking for a lot of those things too. We've implemented some of those things, and there's still a lot of reform and changes, I think, that we could make to our system. And the prosecutor's office is a critical piece of that system, and
Yeah.
so working with the community, working with stakeholders, working with the whole criminal justice system to figure out how can we be more efficient and effective, and using, some of the suggestions are so relevant. Some suggestions, to your point, around the fentanyl crisis and homeless crisis may need to be adjusted. We may need new strategies. So those are some of my thoughts of what I'm looking for from our prosecutor's office, is to be engaged, actively engaged in how can we do better as a county in making sure people are held accountable, but also that we have ways for folks to get back into our community in ways, to Commissioner French's point, we do want to move things through the system more quickly, because there are impacts to everyone, defendants, victims, and our whole system.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to cut off the commissioners at this point. I will. We will
He
stop.
asked a question of elected officials. and-
I know. We'll stop the clock, but I will give you a few minutes just to, if you have a closing statement or something that you want to make sure that we know about you that we didn't ask.
Well, I think you guys asked a bunch of great questions, and I think you probably know a little bit about me from what I've written in. But I want to thank you for this opportunity to come forward and talk to you. I am, what I put in there in why I sought this position, I've never really sought a prosecutor role. And interestingly enough, I'll tell a quick story, is one of the reasons I never sought it was when I passed the bar, we were forced to watch these videos of different jobs. And I remember the lady who was talking about the prosecutor job, and she goes, "This is the best job. If I think someone's guilty, I get to throw the book at them. But if I think they're not guilty, I get to cut them a pretty light sentence so they only go to jail for a little bit." I just sat there and thought, well, that's weird. Why are we possibly thinking everyone should go to jail? And so I instead chose different routes. But one of the reasons I originally put my name forward because we needed 3 on there. But then it occurred to me, you guys deserve 3 actual choices. And so I'm the conventional candidate. You've got 2 people who do have prosecution experience, and I think they're both good. But that's why I'm here, is to make sure you do have a 3rd choice, because you constitutionally deserve one. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Casey, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate you putting your name forward. So
Thank you.
as we all know, it's not easy to do. It opens yourself up for a lot of public scrutiny, as you know. So I just want to say thank you very much for allowing yourself to come forward and to be interviewed today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to check with my commissioners to make sure, are we okay to move forward, or do you want to take a couple-minute recess? Okay, I think everyone's good. Okay, I do know. Okay, Mr. Steve Garvin is here, so.
Hustled in, I got the call.
You did, yes. No, very good.
Is this where you want me here?
So yes, so you can be there, or if you're more comfortable, we can have you sit.
This is fine.
Okay. So just to give you kind of the rundown that we have is, we have the list of questions that you'd received. We're going to just kind of do a round robin where we'll go start with Commissioner Jordan and work our way through until we get to about 25 minutes. And then I'll allow about 5 minutes for you to ask any questions of us, or just to kind of give a closing statement. We'll start the 30 minutes kind of when we get going here. Is there anything else? We will be, just so you know, we'll be saying the number of the question as we go through, just so we can track who's asked which questions. So not for your purpose, but for our purpose, to just keep things moving forward. And if you would like to make a quick statement to start, you're welcome to do that, and then we'll start the clock. So if you just like to introduce yourself, that'd be
Sure.
great, and then we'll start questions.
Sure. Good afternoon. I know I've met some of you. My name is Steve Garvin. I've gone through the process to apply to be the next Spokane County prosecutor after Larry's resignation. And what I hope that you gather, and I hope I'll have a chance to elaborate on this, is the reason that I am putting myself forward is not because I am on a mission to be a politician. It is because I view Spokane as facing a very serious and urgent public safety apocalypse, frankly, that's heading our direction. If you look at the numbers for our county, our crime rates are, if not double the national average, right in the vicinity of double the national average. We had over 340 people die of drug overdose on the streets of Spokane last year. And we have a criminal justice system that is deeply backlogged. The courts are clogged. And the prosecuting attorney needs to be a leader in addressing this situation. And I put myself forward because I have not seen that kind of leadership coming from the current prosecuting attorney management. So there's a lot that the prosecuting attorney can do to move forward, to increase public safety, to address these urgent problems that I think that our county has. I had the opportunity to be a leader and manager in the office for 5-6 years in multiple units, and somewhat to my surprise, I found I was pretty good at it. And I was good at teaching younger lawyers because I have a great depth of legal experience. I was good at tracking their output, mentoring, coaching them, and we were able to achieve a lot of efficiency and a lot of justice for victims without having to go back to the taxpayer and ask for more money. So as you guys probably know, I'm deeply concerned about the fiscal future of the county. I'm worried that the amount of money that the county has to put into public safety is only going to tighten in the future, not loosen. And so the prosecuting attorney's office must do more with less. And if we don't change our direction, the vibrant city that we once had, that my wife and I chose to move to 24 years ago in 2001, when Spokane was thriving and downtown was thriving and businesses wanted to be here and people wanted to move here, now I talk to my neighbors and they're all talking about moving away. So I see an urgent need. I believe I have the experience, the background, and a proven track record to address it. So I'm hoping to have that discussion with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. So that will take us to questions, and we're going to start with Commissioner Jordan.
Thanks for being here, Mr. Garvin. Good to see you. You talked about your background. This is question 12. Can you tell us what you consider to be your most important professional accomplishment?
So I have been a lawyer. This is my 30th year of practice as a lawyer. I started as a deputy district attorney in San Diego, California in 1995. And over those years, I've had the privilege and the responsibility of fighting for crime victims for 26 years as a criminal prosecutor, 19 of them right here in Spokane County. And I'm proud of the work that I did there. I'm proud of the teams that I led, teams of detectives and police officers and paralegals and secretaries and other lawyers. I've tried 172 criminal jury trials in my career. I've tried 17 murder trials in my career. I have only had 2 reversals, and neither of them were for things that were attributable to my conduct or work. So I'm very proud of that professional accomplishment. I would also say that I'm proud of the work I'm doing right now at the Attorney General. I have saved the taxpayers of this state millions and millions and millions of dollars through aggressive tort defense of the state, both in the trial courts, both in successful mediations, as well as in the Court of Appeals to include the Ninth Circuit. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you in person.
Yes. If you were appointed Spokane County prosecutor, what would be your, oh, I'm sorry, number 6, number 6. This is, what would be your initial priorities? And you can give us an example of where the office could do better. How would you approach making changes happen?
The first priority on day one is to get an understanding and a grasp of how deep the problem and challenge of unfiled cases is. I don't know that number. When I supervised units, I tracked it very closely and worked to bring it back to 0, what I call real-time prosecution. My estimate, and from talking to people who have left the office, so many people have left over the last couple years, it's north of 600 unfiled felony cases. That has to be identified, and then a plan needs to be implemented to begin to address that. That is a significant contributor. I don't know if it's the biggest, but it's a significant contributor to the problems we have in our urban areas in our county, a significant contributor to the high crime rates that we have in Spokane County, and getting on top of that, bringing justice for those crime victims, bringing treatment for those that are drug addicted or mentally ill, and accountability would be the first priority. There's a lot of priorities, things that need to happen very quickly, but that's the first and most important one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask question 3. What specific attributes do you believe make you the best candidate for this position?
I think it is both my experience and my track record. I think that in many fields, in many endeavors, and being an attorney is a skilled endeavor. It's not something that you graduate from law school being naturally gifted at or good at. You have to practice the law. That's why it's called practice. And that's why attorneys who are partners and have decades of experience charge the highest rates and often get the best outcomes in court. So having been an attorney, as I touched on earlier, for 30 years, I've done both criminal work extensively, obviously, but I also have done civil work, both at a private law firm as well as at the Attorney General's office. So I have both a depth and a breadth of legal experience that I think is pretty critical for the prosecuting attorney's office to have. I mentioned that I've also had the experience of being a leader and a supervisor of multiple units and addressing serious challenges that those units have as well. So I think that are really the key attributes. And then the final thing I'll just touch on, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this sense of urgency that I feel to move forward, to get the courts unclogged, to bring justice to victims in a more timely fashion. I think that is something that you learn from experience, because I know how to move cases. I know how to get the courts moving faster. And I think it's urgent, and I think we need to move forward on that quickly. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I have a question number 4. What are the core duties and functions of the Spokane County Prosecutor?
The number one function of the county prosecutor is public safety. We need a safe and clean community where people can do business, where people can raise their families, where businesses can thrive, where businesses want to move here, where we become a magnet for new businesses rather than the opposite. So addressing those urgent public safety concerns that I've touched on before, that I see in our community, is really job one. I'm sure you all are well aware that there are other functions. The civil function of the prosecuting attorney is very important. There, I see Mr. Folsom is here. That's the county prosecutor is the mandatory attorney for all of the elected officials, to the county commissioners, as well as to department heads, and giving that kind of competent, thoughtful, experienced advice to them so that they can achieve the goals for their departments, to achieve their goals as elected officials, but to do it in ways that are thoughtful of the risk and exposure that it may put the county into, is very important. And then there is a third branch, of course, which is the family law unit that is doing child support enforcement on a grant from the state government. So, but really that public safety component, I think, is what I would describe as job one.
Very good. Thank you. So Commissioner French
Oh,
is on
oh,
Zoom,
Mike.
so he'll go next.
How are you, sir?
My question is number 16, and thank you, sir, for being part of the process. Share with us a specific accomplishment of yours in a previous leadership role that indicates how you would thrive in this position.
So I've touched on a little bit, but I did have the opportunity, and as I mentioned, found that I was a good office manager. I spent a number of years supervising the juvenile division here for Spokane County. And when I arrived there, I found that there were over 1,000 unfiled cases. We literally found them in boxes in the kitchen area of that very small office. If you've ever been over there, you know it's very tiny. So I had a very small team of lawyers. It was just myself, 3 lawyers, a couple paralegals. And so we tackled this problem of getting that department back to real time. And we analyzed the scope of the problem. We prioritized it. We started, of course, with the most serious felony cases that had not been filed. Unfortunately, in some of them, the statute of limitations had even passed. But we prioritized to do what we could where we could not, and I had to make those difficult phone calls to victims and say, I'm sorry, the ball was dropped, the statute of limitations has passed. I had to do that, and that was unpleasant. But then we worked our way through the problem by tracking it every month. Every lawyer in my unit would get a list of how many cases did they open, how many cases did they close, what were their results, were there any factors outside of their control I need to know, like a family issue or a sickness or something. And if they were not moving as quickly as they could or should, that was an opportunity for me to intervene and teach them and coach them with the experience that I have. When I went to the property drug unit, which is all felonies, Again, I found the same situation. There were over 800 unfiled felony cases between those two units. And fortunately, I had a bigger team, over 10 lawyers, several paralegals, many secretaries, and we followed kind of the same playbook that had worked successfully for me in the juvenile unit. We identified the problem, we prioritized the most serious cases first. I tracked people's output, I coached, I mentored, I helped them learn how to move their cases through the court system more quickly. And by the time I left that, we were right down to the last 40 or 50 cases. We were on track to clear that backlog from the property drug unit. So I'm very proud of that work. I think it's significant, and we need to get an entire office that's working in that fashion. Thank you, sir.
This is number 10. What role do you see for the prosecutor's office in collaborating with other stakeholders across the region to improve outcomes, efficiency, and effectiveness in the justice system?
So I think there is a big role in the collaborative criminal justice system. I mean, criminals don't care whether they're on the Spokane Valley side of the line or on the city side of the line or the north side of the county. So these are problems that don't really care about the jurisdictional lines throughout our county. And working together, particularly when you look at the homelessness, lawlessness on the streets, untreated mental illness and drug addiction problems, you see, if you study the issue, as I have, that the communities that work together, frankly, whether they're red communities or blue communities or a mix, the communities that work together make the most progress. What I see right now is there's a lot of friction between particularly the city of Spokane and Spokane County. So I am eager to get in there and to work hard on those issues, to identify where we can collaborate, where we can compromise and negotiate. And if we can't, I'm proposing to you that we bring effective measures such as nuisance lawsuits that have worked. That is what shut down Camp Hope in a way that was humane and brought humane treatment to the people that were stuck living in that very rough environment. So I'm deeply committed to collaboration and cooperation where possible, but even superseding that, we've just got to begin to address these issues. So hopefully that answers your question.
I'm going to go right down to the next question, number 11. What role can the prosecutor's office play in connecting defendants to drug and mental health treatment when needed? You're talking about a lot of the crisis that we're facing. How can your office, that office, play a strong role to connect defendants and also to reduce those defendants coming back to court, reduce recidivism?
Recidivism, sure. So the prosecutor is the gatekeeper, frankly, for all of those programs. Except, of course, if they're in a municipality, one of the municipalities that's administering their own programs, such as community court. It, to me, does not make any sense that we don't have a district court drug program, like a drug court. As you probably know, a number of years ago, the Washington Supreme Court ruled that the possession of a controlled substance law was no longer valid, and then when it was reenacted by the legislature, it came back as a misdemeanor or gross misdemeanor. So those cases, when people are picked up for simple possession charges, they're going to be in district court or municipal court somewhere in Spokane County. So it doesn't make any sense to me that we don't have that program there for the nonviolent offenders that are a good fit for that drug court program. So I would really like to explore and ideally stand that up very quickly. Drug court is proven. Everything I've seen is that it is proven to save lives. It's proven to reduce recidivism, which you were talking about. And also important to me, it's been proven through the administrative office of the courts to save the taxpayer money. Because a rearrest and another prosecution 2 or 3 years down the road is a very expensive proposition. So, you know, even if there is a relapse, the ability through drug court programs to extend the period of time where someone goes drug-free and hopefully crime-free, every extension of that is a win for the taxpayer. So we need to look very closely at those programs. We need to make sure that the Superior Court program is full with the appropriate cases, obviously with PCS now being in district court. There's going to be a shift in the balance between how many cases go into Superior Court drug court versus a district court drug court program. But I think we can safely, for nonviolent offenders, look at really getting as many people as are appropriate for those programs in. And if we use best practices, we will see reduced crime rates, we'll see reduced recidivism, and we'll save money. So I'm a big proponent of those programs where appropriate.
I'm going to ask question 14. How would your fellow coworkers describe you, and how would they describe your management style?
So I worked my way through college in San Diego at a little company called San Diego Mirror and Glass. It was down there right next to the Miramar Naval Air Station. And I'll tell, this is a short story, I'll keep it short, but I worked for a guy named Chuck Shep. And every day, Chuck and I would load up our truck with mirror and glass and go out and do installations out around San Diego. And about maybe, I don't know, my first 3 or 4 weeks, we came back to the shop a little early, and a bunch of guys were standing around just talking about the day and so forth, and I was standing around talking with them. And Chuck called me over and he said, "Steve, never stand around. Grab a broom, clean this place up, hustle and work." And I've never forgotten that lesson that I learned from Chuck. So I work very hard. I show up early. I work late. I work on the weekends. I work very hard to bring good cheer to the office environment. I think that's an opportunity that we have. Working with people so closely, so many hours out of the day is very important. But that said, I hold myself to very high standards, and I expect high standards from the people that I work with, and I would expect high work standards from the people that I would supervise. So I think that's the description you would get.
So I'm going to ask question 23, which is what type of metrics and performance measures would you look to gather and report on regularly for the public, who are the ones that elect, and for the BOCC, the Board of County Commissioners, to help assess the effectiveness of the prosecutor's office? And I talk about the BOCC as you would be a separate elected, but we also hold the purse strings, so that's where it's that, working together.
Sure. I've touched on earlier, and I would reiterate here, a key metric is getting back to real time. And that's something that's very trackable. You can also track other metrics, such as the length of time that a case dwells in Superior Court and in District Court. And that's something that should be tracked. I think the numbers, the last time I looked, were over 70% of the inmates in our jail are there on pretrial detention. So one of the things that I worked on and was able to accomplish when I supervised the property drug unit was teaching lawyers just the nuts and bolts, how to move their cases more quickly. And when you move your cases more quickly, you get the appropriate offenders, you get them off to prison, which means the state is paying for it and not the County Board of Commissioners. And you also open up the court system, and you open up space in the jail so that we don't have that red light that goes on at the jail, which means cops are very limited in who they can arrest, which is very dangerous to our community. So tracking the metrics of unfiled cases and what I would call the dwell time, or the length of time between when a case is filed and when a case is resolved, is very important. The third principle that the prosecuting attorney's office should implement is to really focus on chronic offenders. If you study crime, as I have for 30 years, one of the things that has been proven in Washington State and across the country is that a very small number of people, between 5 and 8% of the offenders in any community, are committing over 50% of the crime. So they can be identified by the frequency of their arrests. They can be identified within the prosecutor's office, and then they can be aggressively and promptly prosecuted and sent off to state prison. So the metric would be identifying, have we identified them, and then what is our outcome in terms of how quickly are we able to move them on. So those are the things that I think are important. I do think that it is important to track individual attorney productivity, both in terms of how many cases do they close and how many trials do they close. Not so much to get them in trouble per se, but again, as an opportunity to teach and instruct. The office is very green. It has a lot of very young, inexperienced lawyers, and as I mentioned before, they don't come out of law school knowing how to do prosecution or how to be effective in the courtroom. So that's a real opportunity to track them, and I think we can see those numbers come down, which will be tremendously beneficial to our community.
So I'm going to ask question number 25. When you've encountered conflict in the decision-making process that involved other people, how did you go about solving the conflict?
So litigation, of course, is all about, by its very nature, it's a conflict-driven process. In every lawsuit, there's at least two sides and sometimes more. So when you look at how do you resolve those conflicts, the first thing is to bring clarity to what your objectives are. I think that's very important. And the second then is to listen and understand where the other side is coming from. And a lot of times, I used to call it negotiate laterally. For example, in criminal justice, the key thing that you're always negotiating is how much time in jail are we talking about. But often there are other concerns that both criminal defendants as well as victims have. And so there's room to negotiate laterally on those matters. In civil litigation, whether you're in a mediation or you're negotiating directly with opposing counsel, again, a lot of times the key metric is always how much money is it going to take for the lawsuit to go away. But there are often other concerns, such as the timing of it or maybe a structured settlement. So by listening carefully, a lot of times you can identify those opportunities to have a successful negotiation.
My next question is number 5. What is your experience working with labor organizations or managing a represented workforce?
So the prosecuting attorney's office here for a long time was a unionized workforce. That was decertified, and I don't recall exactly when, a number of years ago. And of course, I was mandated to be a member of that as someone who worked there for until that dissolved. I was also in an association. The San Diego District Attorney's Office had a DA's association that I was a part of. I've never been in leadership in any union or association positions, and frankly, in my time managing and leading and supervising, I didn't have any conflicts that brought me into any discussions with the union. So I don't have a great deal of answer to that, except that it's just part of the modern workforce. Washington State allows unionization. I think the support staff at the prosecuting attorney's office are still unionized, so those negotiations and working on those workplace issues and obviously compensation issues is just going to be part of the job.
So I'm going to go to 15, which is tell us about a time when traditional solutions didn't work in your experience. Describe the situation, how it was maybe traditionally solved, and how you came up with an innovative solution.
So, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but I will point back to, the answer so often in government is more money. The answer to problems in government so often is we just need to put more money into the problem. But when you look at what I did when I was supervising the juvenile unit as well as the property and drug units, what I experienced when I led those units was that by encouraging, by mentoring, and by setting out clear goals, we were able to do more with less. We were able to achieve an innovative outcome, getting back to real time, clearing unfiled cases from literally the drawers in the kitchen of the office by the innovative approach that I brought to the table, which was let's track it as a group. I mean, every month I sent out a track. I had a big whiteboard in my office every month, and I would have pizza parties, and I would give out challenge coins and all kinds of things to get morale up and get people going on the same page, and it worked. That's the beauty of it. It worked. So by identifying the problem and communicating it in a way that I think was innovative within the prosecuting attorney's office, no one else had done it before or since, we were able to get back to real time. So that's the best example that I can think of.
And I'm going to ask question 19. Please describe a situation when you were in a public meeting and had to handle negative community feedback. What were the political pressures involved in this situation, and how did you handle it?
The most political process that I was involved in was, 8 years ago, maybe even 10. I don't recall the exact time frame. But when the MacArthur Foundation came to Spokane, and they were both offering grants and putting quite a bit of pressure on the prosecuting attorney's office and county government to look at issues involving pretrial detention and jail population issues. I went to many of those meetings. And the key in those meetings, at least what I did, was to listen carefully, to be cheerful even in the midst of disagreement, to represent and stand firm where we knew the office was not going to accommodate their requests, particularly violent offenders, domestic violence offenders, and so forth, but to look for areas of compromise where it was possible. We did occasionally, at least I occasionally, came kind of under fire, so to speak, by some of the community advocates and so forth, and just listening to them, and a lot of times going up and chatting with them one-on-one after the meeting would get you a lot of traction, and you could explain why, even though their concerns are valid, you can't agree with them at that point. So that's probably the best example that I can think of where I was in kind of a somewhat public setting and coming under fire, so to speak.
Okay, we're at our last 5 minutes, so I want to give you the opportunity, if you have a question you would like to ask us, or if you would like to take time to, say what we haven't asked you that you want us to know about you, or if you'd like a closing statement.
So the question I would ask you to either ask yourselves or talk to me anytime is, do you feel that Spokane is on the right track? Are you happy with where we are and where we are headed? And if the answer is no, then do not vote for the status quo, because change is necessary or we will get where we are headed. The combination of an economic downturn that reduces county revenues, combined with the caseload standards that are coming like a freight train towards criminal justice in Washington State, are going to take us from a position where on some metrics, we are one of the bottom counties in the entire country on some of these statistics. We deserve better. The citizens, crime victims, businesses, they deserve better, and the status quo will not get us there. I had the opportunity in the course of campaigning and reaching out and meeting with people. I met with a man who's the district attorney for Sacramento County in California. His name is Tin Ho. He's an amazing man. He was literally one of the Vietnamese boat refugees. If you're old like me, you can remember when they came across the ocean as refugees from Vietnam. He inherited a county where over 400 people died of drug overdose. And by bringing accountability to public spaces, compassionate enforcement, by getting treatment providers online and collaboration, he took that number from 400 people dying on the streets of Sacramento to 40. So change is possible, but only if we don't accept the status quo. That's why I'm here. That's why I've thrown myself into this process that has not always been very pleasant for me or my family. But I'm here to serve the public, and because I see that we have got to change direction in Spokane County. So that is what I would leave you with. That's the question that I ask you to ask yourselves when you think about who you're going to vote for in this process. And I thank you for your attention today.
I want to say thank you, and we do appreciate you putting your name forward, because we know, as all of us are electeds up here, it is not easy. So we do appreciate the fact that you've done that, and I know it's not, the process isn't an easy process either, and putting yourself out there. So thank you very much for doing that. We truly appreciate it.
Thank you, and happy Tuesday.
Thank you. Okay, that's going to take us to our next candidate that we're going to interview is Mr. Preston McCollum. Oh, is Preston not here yet? Okay. Preston is not here. I do believe, even though we don't have times on our agenda, I think the clerk had sent out some times to the candidates, so I apologize for that. So we do have about 5 minutes that we need to take, so we'll recess for 5 minutes, and then we will reconvene to have our last candidate. Once we give you an opportunity just to give a quick introduction of yourself, we're going to do up to 30 minutes, but we'll set a timer for 30 minutes. We'll do questions. We'll start with Commissioner Jordan, and we'll work our way down. Commissioner French is on Zoom. At the about 25 minutes left, I will cut off the questions and give you an opportunity to ask us something or just state anything that you would like to make sure that we hear about you that we may not have asked at this point in time.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay? So with that, I will give you the opportunity to just give a quick introduction of yourself, and then we'll go ahead and get started with questions.
Okay. My name is Preston McCullum. Obviously, you know me. I'm currently the acting prosecutor for the county. This is a community that I'm living in, raising my family in. I'm happily married to a wonderful wife, Mackenzie. I have 4 beautiful kids. I've got 3 daughters. My oldest is 10. I've got twin 7-year-olds, and I have a 5-month-old that we welcomed here recently. And so I'm putting my name in for this position because I've been the chief criminal deputy for the last couple of years, and I've worked in this office for over a decade now. And this is my community. This is where I live. This is where I want to raise my family. I believe that I can add a lot of value to this team here at the county, that we can provide good and competent legal advice to the board, and that we can effectively and efficiently prosecute crime in this community. I very much believe in a collaborative approach. That's something that I bring to the table, is the ability to work with other organizations, with other jurisdictions, municipalities, and departments in order to achieve our ultimate goal of making sure that we are fulfilling the core responsibilities of the prosecutor in pursuing crime within our community, but also preserving the rights of our citizens and elevating the voices of crime victims. So I believe very strongly in that, and I know that I have the skill set, the support, and the ability to do that in this office.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and start.
Good to see you, Preston. This seems like a good question to start us off. This is number 6. If you were appointed Spokane County prosecutor, what would be your initial priorities? Give us an example of where you think the office can do better and how you would approach making that happen.
Well, first and foremost, and not to put you all on the spot, but it's to make sure that we're securing the funding and resources that we need to maintain our staffing levels. And so that is a project that I've engaged in quite a lot, especially as being the chief deputy, is providing the board with information on how best to support law and justice and how best to support our office. And it's not as easy of a solution of saying just give the prosecutors more people. You have to support the entire system in a way that makes sense. So that would be the first priority, especially as we're ending our budget cycle here shortly. But first and foremost, ways that we can, I think, innovate and change. And I've already been engaging in that and meeting with judges, meeting with defense, meeting with the jail, meeting with Mike Sparber to address different cost saving and efficiencies that we can engage in terms of how can we process cases either quicker or more efficiently, but also how are we going to address the oncoming onslaught of the caseload standards that we're facing. Because, again, prosecution's not just as simple as I go out and charge every crime that darkens my door, is your prosecutor has to be wise with the funds that we have and prioritize those. And the legislature gives us a hierarchy. The legislature sets out what are serious violent offenses. Those are your rapes, your murders, your kidnappings, your aggravated assaults. You've got violent offenses, you've got your Class B felonies, your Class C felonies, and you have to be able to prioritize those things and not just charge everything that gets referred to your office. And so something that I'm doing, again, is meeting with stakeholders to address how we can improve and communicate more, speaking with the judges about how we can identify ways to save time, to streamline our court processes, and working with the jail to make sure that we have the transport teams necessary if we're able to increase some of our dockets, and talking to defense about how to prioritize some of our staffing levels and see if there are things we can attack together.
Hi, Preston. Good to see you.
Good afternoon.
And I'm going to go with number 9 here, which is, what is your view of regional collaboration and the role of the county prosecutor's office in supporting and collaborating with other local jurisdictions?
So one thing that individuals would say about me, again, is I bring a collaborative approach. I strongly believe that together we rise or divided will fall. So we have to address problems not just as an individual department or an individual municipality or jurisdiction. We have to be able to interface with all of the entities that fall in our domain. So it's not just the state, it's not just Spokane County, but it's the City of the Valley, it's Cheney, it's Airway Heights, it's all the other municipalities, the City of Spokane. So I believe very strongly that we need to emphasize our relationships and work together to bridge some of those gaps. If there's a topic that is just a non-starter, don't let that blow up the rest of the discussions that we have between our jurisdictions. We need to be able to get to resolutions because we're accountable to all of the people within our community. And so I believe very strongly in that, in my role as a chief deputy, as well as, frankly, even before that, when I was in our major crimes and gang unit. I worked very strongly with our regional partners in law enforcement, worked very strongly with the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I'm very proud to say that we bridged a lot of gaps over the last, I'd say, 2 to 4 years with both our federal partners and other state partners to be able to communicate effectively and address crime no matter where it occurs.
Preston, thank you for being here. I'm going to ask question number 5. What is your experience working with labor organizations or managing represented workforce?
Well, for over the last 2 years, I've been responsible for managing a large group of represented employees. Prior to that, I had a lot of experience in addressing personnel issues, whether it was within a labor union or outside of a labor union. As a manager and both as a represented employee, I've dealt a lot with whether it's personnel issues, disciplinary issues, in some cases terminations that were necessary. And one of the most important things that a manager has to keep in mind is we all have rules. We have county policy that directs how we address our employees. There are labor agreements that a manager has to be mindful of and aware of, so that as you're managing these individuals, you're making sure that you're giving them the rights or promises that they bargained for, and make sure that the county's getting good value in exchange for whatever was bargained during those labor negotiations. And so I do have experience in addressing some of those issues, working through how county policy impacts some labor agreements and vice versa, as well as working with our Human Resources Department and labor management and addressing issues unique to individual units or our department as a whole.
I'm going to ask question number 4. So what are the core duties and functions of the Spokane County Prosecutor's Office?
Our core duties are set out by statute. RCW 3627-020 lays out what the duties of a prosecutor are. We have a lot more information given to us and guidance given to us by our case law and rules of professional conduct. But the prosecutor effectively has 2 pathways. The first is the criminal. When you are a criminal prosecutor, you have 2 core functions, and that's to pursue lawbreakers in your community and seek justice. The second function is to represent the citizens of your community and elevate the voice of the crime victim. The prosecutor, in our state constitution, the term prosecuting attorney appears in multiple different spaces, and we see it in Article 1, Section 35, which is our crime victims' rights that are embedded in our state constitution. So one of the primary duties of a prosecutor is to make sure that crime victims' voices are being heard in that community, and that the court, that law enforcement, and that prosecutors are treating crime victims with respect. The second function of a prosecutor under that the second function of a prosecutor is the civil side. That is providing competent legal advice to the Board of County Commissioners, to all of the department heads within the county, and that's all laid out in RCW 3627. We are to represent the county in civil actions and provide good, competent legal advice, whether it's to the sheriff, the treasurer, the board, the assessor, all the different department heads. And so that is an incredibly important function of the prosecutor. And I think, as you all know, if you have good legal advice, you're making good decisions. If you have bad legal advice, you're going to need a good lawyer.
Mr. McCullough, thank you for your service to the county and also agreeing to pursue this position. I'm going to ask you question number 12, which is, what do you consider to be your most important professional achievement?
quite frankly, the fact that I'm sitting before you all, the fact that I even have this opportunity to address each and every one of you, I would say that a lot of my professional achievements, my mindset's changed quite a lot over the last several years. It used to be individual accomplishments, the case that I did, the case that I resolved, the project I was working on, but more than anything, my mindset has shifted to the people that I've invested in, the people that I've mentored, the amazing things they've been able to accomplish because of the work that we're able to do collaboratively. And so those are the things that I value the most. I'm honored to be here and humbled to have this opportunity. And so thank all of you.
This is number 11. What role can the prosecutor's office play in connecting defendants with drug and mental health treatment when needed and to reduce recidivism?
Under state law, the prosecutor serves as a gatekeeper to all of our therapeutic courts. As the chief deputy, I have made sure that we're staffing our courts. I support therapeutic and alternative courts wholeheartedly. I believe that if you have the right individuals in those courts, there's a lot of good that's done, especially if they're holding individuals accountable. Here in Spokane, we have a felony drug court. We are constantly pushing individuals toward that. It's a pre-conviction drug court, not a post-conviction drug court, and there's a lot of distinctions, but we have a really good team in our drug court and our mental health sentencing alternative that work collaboratively. I can say that we push a lot of people towards those courts, but they still have to engage. And I can tell you that the individuals that are engaged, we get a lot of great results. And so I think that that is something that the prosecutor can do a lot of. We would be doing a lot more of it, frankly, if we had some other services that don't compromise public safety that we could point people towards. So I very much support that. If there are alternatives to push people into those types of programs, but as prosecutor, my role would be to make sure that we are holding people accountable and that the individuals we are pushing towards those programs are suitable for them. And so that's something that I believe is very important. The other role that I think would be important is working with community partners, partnering with the board, with our several jurisdictions and creating a regional justice center that is suitable to the needs of this community. Because what we have right now is antiquated and it is not meeting the needs of this community. So there needs to be a lot of education and advocacy about the need for that, and I do believe it'll pay dividends over the next few decades.
All right, I'm going to move to number 15 on our list, which is tell us about a time when traditional solutions didn't work. Describe this situation, how it was maybe traditionally solved, and how you came up with an innovative solution.
So one thing that I will say in stepping into management at a level such that I did is that a lot of the traditions, many of the line deputies, we didn't know why we did them. We didn't know why the court paperwork flowed a certain way or why the jail booked somebody a certain way. We ran into an issue in my first couple of months as a chief deputy where we had to address our court filings and we were having clogged dockets. And so I was new on the, new in that arena, and I said, let's start a court workflow group. So we partnered with the judges, with Tim Fitzgerald, our court clerk, with the jail, and we changed how we did business in handling paperwork. It used to be that the county prosecutor would run by messenger across the street, every which way, paperwork between the jail, between defense, between our office, and it was just practice. It had existed for 20, 25 years. And so that was a project that I tackled first off. I called Clerk Fitzgerald, and I said, hey, now that I'm in this role, I want to partner with you, and we're stepping out of this business because traditionally, this is how it was handled. But now with new technology, with innovations and the ability to just send an email, we shouldn't be doing this. And so we took a collaborative approach to that. It took several months and a lot of growing pains, but we were able to solve that problem by simply sitting in a room, involving defense counsel, the jail, the courts, and our clerk, and finding out how can we solve this together, and then also setting some realistic deadlines. Because I remember telling that group, we're not stepping into next year with it existing this way. We're going to get this done, and we did.
I'm going to ask question 14. How would your fellow coworkers describe you and how would they describe your management style?
My coworkers would describe me as honest, diligent, and a hard worker. My management style is collaborative yet decisive. I take as many inputs as I can from individuals around me. When we have a project to address, I will routinely pick people that I know will disagree with me and that will fully flesh out what their position is, and then I'm prepared to make a decision. Because a good leader doesn't just pick people that say yes to them. You want people to challenge you, because if nothing else, perhaps you're persuaded or convinced to do something differently, or it highlights issues and you're able to problem solve and issue spot things and reach a good decision. I do believe that my coworkers and colleagues would tell you that I have a growth mindset. I believe in calling greatness out of our peers, out of the people that we're responsible for, and expecting them to do great things. And when you expect them to do great things, they often will rise to the occasion. And so that's the environment that I'm trying to create within our office. And we've been having good success in drawing talented individuals into the office that share those values.
So I'm going to ask question 23, which is, what type of metrics and performance measures would you look to gather and report on regularly to the public or for the BOCC to help assess the effectiveness of the prosecutor's office?
I believe first and foremost that transparency is incredibly important in what we do. When I was a line DPA, I was constantly frustrated by our case management system and trying to get reports out or find out what our stats were. And so I started a project. Now it's been well over a year now, and we're working on getting public-facing dashboards that are going to be on our website, similar to what the jail has, so individuals can see and the public can see, what type of cases are you filing, what type of cases are you resolving, what are the results that we're having. There's a process and a mechanism to look at a lot of those numbers. You could look at, the Administrative Office of the Courts has a lot, but it's kind of clunky to get to that website. And so I've had many conversations with community members that they're mad about property crime. And they're generally shocked when I show them the numbers from state filings. We filed 3 times as many property crimes as Snohomish County did last year. We filed 3 times as many felony assaults than Snohomish County did last year. So their attorneys in this office, their prosecutor's office, is doing a great service to the community, but without that education, people are often misled into thinking, oh my gosh, they're not doing anything, and that's simply not the case. So to answer the question, because I didn't fully, is transparency. I believe that we should be accountable to the board in terms of our fiduciary duties. What are we spending money on and why? So I anticipate, I've selected for this role, to be able to routinely come before the board and give an account for what we're doing, the types of cases we're addressing. If you're getting complaints in a certain area, recognizing that the board and the county prosecutor are separate, co-equal elected officials, yet there is a fiduciary and a reporting duty, in my opinion, to the Board of County Commissioners as well as the public, because we're beholden to the public and they need to know how we're spending the money that you entrusted us with, and they need to know what we've done with those resources. What crimes are we addressing? How are we addressing them? And where is that impact occurring? So I would anticipate, hopefully in the next few weeks to months, that we have those dashboards live, and that would help a lot on that forward-facing transparency.
Thank you.
So I will ask question number 25. When you've encountered a conflict in a decision-making process that involved other people, how did you go about solving the conflict?
So conflict is our life, especially as criminal prosecutors, and especially working with multi-jurisdictions and with elected officials. I think the best approach to conflict is diplomacy and tact. What are our goals going into that? What are their goals? Being able to understand not just your argument, but the other argument. An effective attorney, an effective prosecutor, is able to balance not only your position, but your opponent's position in one hand. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to address the changes, address the problems and the challenges that come at you. So to the extent possible, diplomacy and tact, I think, are often very helpful. And if you're not able to reach or solve a conflict to everybody's satisfaction, something that we often do, especially in criminal negotiations, is you reach a resolution that makes everybody equally unhappy, and then decide, can I live with that? And if you can, then agree on the things that you can agree on, and fight over the things that you have to fight over, but don't stop the discussion. And so something that we do constantly as criminal prosecutors is we negotiate. We communicate. We're talking with family members, with law enforcement, with defense counsel, and we're looking at what everybody's individual desires are, and then trying to reach a resolution that's just.
This is number 18. What do you see as the biggest challenges the county is going to face over the next 5 years? How would your office help address these challenges at Spokane County?
I believe, everybody in this room knows, is the primary challenges that face a county government is growth and dwindling tax revenues, dwindling support from the state. And so if that wasn't enough, we also have a state Supreme Court that has made a lot of rule changes in the last several years that greatly impact criminal justice. Just this month, we had 2 separate rule changes go into effect that greatly impact both prosecution and court operations. We had a rule regarding arraignment, where the court reduced the arraignment time to a 3-day turnaround. And so that's something that we are grappling with. We worked with the courts and with our jail and law enforcement to find a solution to that. The dwindling resources is something that will be facing this county forever, and that's just the plight of every county municipality everywhere. And so those are a lot of the challenges, and then as Spokane grows, a lot of the needs shift. So as we get more population, as we expand, the need to provide constitutionally mandated resources or statutorily mandated services expands as well. And so just because that purse doesn't get bigger doesn't mean the obligation shrinks. So as county prosecutor, my goal would be to partner with the Board of County Commissioners on those hard-to-solve issues that arise in the public works or infrastructure area, and make sure that you're getting good legal advice when you're entering contracts, making sure you're getting good legal advice when you're addressing, urban growth or boundaries, and in those arenas that you have somebody who's identifying the pitfalls for you. And that's the job of your prosecutor, to make sure that you're staffed with competent legal advice. On the criminal side, the goal is to partner with the board to receive support for funding, let you know where the issues are and how you can help. And then not just hold our hand out and say, give me money, but here's how you can help, and here's how I can help you. We can try to identify whether it's grant resourcing or alternative income sources. I think there's a lot of innovation that can occur between the elected officials of all the different elected departments. And so I envision that being a primary focus in the event that I have this role.
We haven't asked number 22, have we? Okay, well, this was a good that was a good segue, Preston, to number 22, which is, in this position, you'll be working closely with various elected officials. Describe your experience working with political figures or similar type occupations. What were the greatest challenges you experienced, and how did you manage to overcome them?
Well, despite, I guess, what you all may feel about yourselves, you get dressed the same way I do every day. So I always keep that in mind. But no, truly, candidly, the biggest problem in speaking with elected officials, frankly, is time. A lot of folks don't realize the demands that are on each of the individual elected officials. You're being called to this meeting or that meeting or this event or that event, and then you have an office to run, or in your case, a county to run. And so I've worked with elected officials my entire career, whether it's judges, whether it's the sheriff, whether it's the court clerk, or whether it's the Board of County Commissioners. That's something that I have a lot of experience in dealing with elected officials. And I think primarily the challenge is getting everybody in the same room. I think it's a miracle every time I see that we have all 5 of the commissioners in the same place, because you are called on to attend so many different things, and everybody's schedule doesn't line up. So I do believe that is a very challenging aspect of that, but it's something that I'm familiar with, I'm adept at. I'm not afraid to talk to elected officials, and especially when our role is primarily either advising, educating in the sense of letting you know what our needs are, or identifying issues and addressing how to solve them.
And I'm going to ask question 19. Describe a situation when you were in a public meeting and had to handle negative community feedback. What were the political pressures involved in this situation, and how did you handle it?
We don't have public meetings in the same sense that, say, the board does. We don't do a lot of press conferences, but I've had multiple occasions over the years, whether it's you're at a crime scene and you have people that want to throw rocks at you, or you're in court and you have individuals that are unhappy with what's occurring. I can think of a circumstance a couple years ago. I was doing an aggravated murder trial, and I had an angry courtroom. It was packed, standing room only, and we had to take a recess because of conduct that was occurring in the courtroom. So the judge kicked everybody out into the hallway, and so we're on the 3rd floor in Superior Court. I climbed up on a table, and I stood on top of the table, and I addressed the entire hallway and laid out why everybody needed to be calm and respectful, that we were, I believe, a week or two into this trial, and that if there were other outbursts, that it could potentially impact not only the defendant's right to get a fair trial, but it could potentially impact whether or not we could proceed. And so we took those moments to tell everybody what was going on, and then went back into the courtroom. I believe that regardless of the circumstance or the pressure that's put on us, we have to do the right thing regardless of the fallout. And sometimes that means having those hard conversations with an angry mob, an angry boss, or an angry board of county commissioners.
Okay, so we're at 5 minutes and 14 seconds, so I'm going to stop the questions at this point. I want to give you an opportunity to, if you want to ask us any questions, or take the time to kind of give a closing statement for anything that you want us to hear that we did not ask of you.
Frankly, I don't want to disrespect you. I don't have any questions for all of you. I very much closely follow what you do and understand the constraints and the challenges that you face. In terms of a closing, I guess I would just leave with, I would implore you to recognize, and I know that you already do because you get these briefings, you get these updates, to recognize that we're facing statewide issues. A lot of the problems that people talk about as being Spokane-centric, they're not Spokane-centric. It's a Washington problem. It's an Oregon problem. It's a statewide, it's larger than what's happening here. And what I tell people is, imagine what it would be like in Spokane if we were doing things the way some of these other counties are. In Spokane County, yes, we have high caseloads, and that's reflective of our desire to diligently pursue criminals in this arena. When you look at the resolution numbers for last year, we resolved cases on par with Pierce County. We filed more cases than Pierce County. We are addressing issues as hard as we can with limited resources. In terms of crime, whether it's property crime, violent crime, again, not just a Spokane issue, Washington-wide. The most recent FBI report showed Seattle ranked 4th in the nation. 4th out of every city in the nation for property crime. Portland was 3rd, right? So these are issues that are not just a Spokane-centric issue, but they're going to have to take collaboration and communication that transcends the county. And I believe that we can do that to, whether it's change the law, I do believe we need stiffer penalties for drug crimes, because what we're experimenting with right now, you could walk downtown and know that's not the way that it should be. But you're not going to solve that by filling our jail with misdemeanants. You're not going to solve that by arresting every drug user on the street. You're going to have to solve that with some bigger ideas that are going to come at the state level, and we're going to assist in the implementation. So I believe that I can do that. I believe that I could be an advocate, not just for this county, but for statewide change. And I'm prepared to do that if selected as a county prosecutor.
Okay, so I just want to say thank you very much for putting your name forward. I've said it to all the candidates. As we all know, as elected officials, putting yourself out there is not always easy. And so we just want to say thank you very much for taking the time and for doing that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so at this time, we will go into executive session. We're going to vow. So I don't know, Matt, do you want to state the purpose for executive session for me?
Happy to. It's printed on the agenda as well. The board would like to break into executive session under RCW 4230-1101H to evaluate the qualifications of a candidate for appointment to the elective office.
And how long do we start with 10 minutes, everyone, or do you, I'm looking to my fellow commissioners. Okay. We're going to start with 10 minutes. If we need to extend, we'll let you know. We are hoping when we come out of executive session that we'll make a decision, but we can't guarantee that. So, so we'll go into executive session now for approximately 10 minutes. It will take just a few minutes to get the video right, because Commissioner French will stay on. We'll need everyone to exit the room, and then we'll see everybody back or let you know in 10 minutes where we're at.